So 3 years from today, this Rochester area will be experiencing a total solar eclipse. And we know that this is a big deal. This is the first time Rochester will see a total solar eclipse since the 1920s. So pretty much in living memory, anyone that lives here that hasn't traveled to see an eclipse. This will be the first time that happens for us here. It'll start, this is a Monday, by the way, that's the Monday after Easter. The eclipse will start at about 2:07 and end about 4:33, but the real show is at 3:20. So between 3:20 and 3:23, the moon will come directly between the Earth and the sun from our perspective here in Rochester, and it will look like night. We can go to the next slide. It will absolutely block the sun, and we will have in our area about 3.5 minutes of totality. So it'll be complete darkness. What happens is the streetlights turn on and the crickets start chirping and the birds go to nest and all the other, animals freak out. It is the most profound and amazing experience that you have ever had to experience totality. I was lucky enough to take a trip with some people. I worked in Milwaukee at the Public Museum, and I brought some people to the line of totality for 2017. And that was in August, and I know Rochester had a partial eclipse at that time. It's an amazing experience. The reason that we want to talk to the Transportation Council, and the reason that Lori and Jim have been so gracious in allowing us to speak everywhere, is that this is an amazing experience. We learned in 2017 that this is a huge tourism experience. We also learned in 2017 that this is a transportation nightmare.
Hey, Billy. Yeah.
We can go to the next slide.
Oh, that's nice.
No, it really is.
Everything good? Everything good on your end down there?
Kevin and Eric, you guys mute. Thanks.
Okay. So this is the pathway that the shadow of the moon will take across the sky on April 8th, 2024. So you can see it goes through Mexico, it goes all the way through the United States, and it goes up into Canada. I'm personally trying to work with all of the science centers and planetariums along this route so that we can be leading some of the science center conversations about how to engage the public along this path. We can go to the next slide and take a look at where we are a little closer to home. Okay, so this is the path of the eclipse. We have, if you're between the two gray lines, you will experience totality. So you can see Buffalo is dead on. Rochester, actually Brockport is the best, the Rochester Museum and Science Center will be the best viewing. But anyways, Brockport will have a couple seconds more of totality. That green line that you see is the center line. But anyone in between the two gray lines is going to experience totality. If you look under the bottom gray line and you look at New York and Boston and Hartford and New Haven and everyone on the lower East Coast, even Philadelphia, there will be a huge influx of tourists that come from that area. And one of the first stops of totality, and people will be aiming for that center line, you can see for a lot of them is Rochester. This is fantastic. It's a huge tourism opportunity. It's a huge science opportunity. It's a great chance to be able to talk to everyone about science and see a lot of people and engage a huge amount of people. Next slide. But what we learned in 2017, and there was a total solar eclipse, it was not, again, we had a partial in Rochester, but there was a total solar eclipse, and I'll show you the path in a second, is that so many people came in across many days, 4, 5, 6 days out, even 2 or 3 days out, that the places along the center line were inundated. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. The problem is that almost every single one of those people that wanted to see that 2017 eclipse across America wanted to leave within the hour after the eclipse ended. And most of them were driving. So in 2024, we have a way greater amount of bigger cities in the path. We have, and I mentioned this at the beginning, we have a 51% chance of sun in Rochester, of full sun. And today we're using up one of those days. A lot of people aren't going to be able to get very far, so we want to engage the people that are here in our city and the people that are here from Boston or Connecticut or Maine or New York or any of that. But the biggest problem is that they will be, many of them will be driving. Many of them will need gas, food, bathrooms, and Wi-Fi. And we have seen, again, the 2017 eclipse. We can actually go to the next slide. There we go. This is the pathway of the 2017 eclipse. We saw that there were certain places, Missouri being actually one of them, Tennessee being another one, that just did not have the infrastructure. So you ended up with people driving into a town that just could not and did not have the capacity to be able to handle that influx of people. There were no hotel rooms, there were no bathrooms, the restaurants were crazy. All of those different things are happening. So we know that may happen here. And so giving us 3 years to plan for this is very important. A couple things that I'm doing as in trying to lead sort of the effort of planning in Rochester is engaging groups like this, engaging all of the government organizations, all of the education and cultural organizations, anybody that has outdoor space, farms, wineries, zoos, and anyone that will be seeing people and asking them to start planning now and offering myself to just talk about this and get people excited and be prepared for it. Another thing that we learned in 2017 is that some towns were asking people to come and other towns were sort of pushing people away along this path. So we want to be one of the towns that's asking people to come, but there will be issues. So let's go to the next slide. There we go. So this, and I know that this is like, you guys love this. This is a Google map of Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Georgia. You can see this is about an hour after the total solar eclipse ended in August of 2017. This is people not being able to get out. Some of those highways, byways, streets, and if you zoomed in on this, a lot of the smaller streets along the path of totality were completely red, and some of them were red for 8, 9, 10, 12, and one of them, there was a small bridge in Ohio that was just jam-packed for a day. So this is the kind of thing that we need to be prepared for and start planning for now. So you look at Nashville had an additional 90,000 people, but then Hopkinsville, Kentucky had 100,000 people and their population is only 32,000. So imagine the porta potty in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And that's why we have to start planning now. And I don't know how many porta potties they had. I can guarantee you they did not have enough. I don't know how many McDonald's or anything else they had, but I can guarantee you they did not have enough. During the 2017 eclipse, the entire state of Wyoming added a fifth of their population. So they increased their population by 20% for 2 days. And Wyoming doesn't have a lot of people in it. And again, traffic lasted a day in some places, but personally, I was on a bus with 50 senior citizens trying to get from the line of totality up to St. Louis. And it took us an hour and a half to get to where we had gone first thing in the morning. And it took us 6 hours to get back. Same path. So again, this is why the Transportation Council needs to sort of be aware of this. Next slide. Oh, this is Missouri, right after totality. That's just a fun one that I know makes your hackles go up. We can go to the next slide. So this is sort of the content of what I wanted to talk about. So expecting the huge crowds, people coming across 1 to 4 days, arriving before the eclipse. So it's definitely not something that we have to super worry about people coming into town because they will sort of space themselves out. And the beauty of it is that the typical spring break is the week before this. Again, this is Easter Monday, so people might arrive a week ahead of time. There will be sort of infrastructure needs for that. We're trying to talk to a lot of the tourism providers and make sure that they understand that it's a good idea for the hotels, motels, Airbnbs, whatever you're doing, have a 2 or a 3 night minimum rather than a 1 night minimum. There's a lot of money. So with tourism comes money, and there's a lot of money that will be coming into this area. So we need to make sure that we get it, right, to be able to support our local infrastructure and businesses, and use it well. So you don't want to just have 1 night, but at this point, you could put hotel rooms up online available for this section of time and sell them out pretty quickly. A year ahead of time, my guess is they will all be sold out. So, you know, tell your friends that are in the hotel, motel, or Airbnb industry that it's not a bad time to increase the prices on for April 8th, 2024, and a couple days ahead of time. Again, if 2017 is any guide, within 2 hours after totality, which is totality ends at about 3:23, that's when people will want to leave. And one of my jobs is trying to keep them around and get folks just completely engrossed in some really cool things that are happening around Rochester. We're planning on running a festival, a celebration, many activities. We're planning on, and this depends on a National Science Foundation grant, but training people to use solar viewing telescopes all over town. And by all over town, I mean all over Western New York. And then we'll have an army of, let's say, 200 people that are trained, and we have those 200 solar viewing telescopes so they can go to all the different places that are celebrating. I'm trying to get, with the same grant, I'm trying to get 500,000 eclipse classes and get them out to kids in the city school district, get them out to teachers, get them out to parents. I'm also trying to see if there's a possible way, and this is maybe where I can use the Transportation Authority's Transportation Council's help. I want to see if I can get the schools to either not open on that day, so continue spring break an extra day, or close early so the kids are home by the time that the eclipse either starts or at least home by 3 o'clock. Or have the kids stay at school later through 4 o'clock or 4:30. If the kids are on the bus, if we have a regular school day on that day, the kids will literally be on the bus during that moment of totality. They will be relatively unsupervised, right? Because the driver is driving. They want to see this if they don't have their glasses or they're looking out the wrong angle of the bus. I mean, it's a huge missed opportunity. So I'm really trying to see what we can do with all of the school districts. And my biggest hope is to keep the kids home, to just extend spring break 1 extra day, have the kids stay at home, or participate in some of the different festivals and fairs and celebrations that we have going on, so they can actually see it safely with their parents and experience this. My worst nightmare is that the buses get stuck in the traffic that we just saw. That's terrible for the kids. It's terrible for the parents. It's terrible for any learning opportunity of checking out this amazing natural phenomenon that won't happen here again for at least 100 years. So the school buses and figuring out what that would mean if the school buses got stuck in that awful traffic would be something that I would love to have the Transportation Council's help on, to figure out what the implications are, because if I can sell that to the superintendents, this would be a nightmare, then maybe I can sell them on the extra day of spring break. We are planning a little bit for rain and cloud cover. If it's completely cloudy, you won't be able to see the eclipse. It will get dark, so at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but it won't, or 3:30, but it won't be super exciting. And in that case, we will, be live streaming. NASA always has a live stream from sunnier places or from up above the clouds. And we will have hopefully all the theaters in the area. I'm going to be trying to engage in some sort of a rain plan so that everybody can see it. But it's really, really, really don't want clouds on that day. And I have zero control over that. Next slide. So this is a screen grab that I took a long time ago. This is our eclipsecentral2024.com is our website that is going to be linked to the rmsc.org website. I took this a while ago. Right now, today, that main number where it says 1642, 1,642 days. Today, it says 1,095 days. So we are exactly 2 years out. But this is a place that you can go for more information. This is a place that you can go to enter in if you want to, if you're a community leader that wants more information, you want to be invited to our stakeholder meetings, things like that. There's a place that's, there's a click button that says get involved. You just put your information in there and then you end up on our mailing list. So Rochester Museum and Science Center bought this website domain and we're running it, but we are working with partners from all over the area. Nobody owns this eclipse, right? We're just trying to make sure that everyone is ready, prepared, excited, and knowledgeable. Another thing that I'm trying to work on is seeing how many, what we found in 2017, and I think the Pew Research organization did a study on this, was that 25% of the general public in the United States did not know that the Earth goes around the sun and the moon goes around the Earth. So on top of all these other things that I'm trying to do, one of the things that I really want to do with this is teach that simple fact. And maybe we can take 25% up to 4%. But just that the fact that the moon is always going around the Earth is always going around the sun, and sometimes they line up from our perspective, which is really what's happening here. And all we're seeing in this eclipse is the shadow of the moon coming across the sun. And there's a couple really interesting science facts about that. I mean, the disk of the sun is 400 times larger than the disk of the moon. But when I say that, like from our perspective, but the moon is 400 times closer to us than the sun is. So the moon lining up with the sun in a total solar eclipse is the exact same size from our perspective. Things like that. So there's some really cool science happening here, but this is more of wrapping our entire local infrastructure up into one science phenomenon, getting everyone excited about it, and then learning a little something about just sort of general physics and the Earth around us. That is exciting to me. Questions?
Before we get into questions, this is Jim. I just want to say, Hillary, thank you. We managed to connect up with the Museum and Science Center a couple years ago. It actually worked through Don Jeffries at the Visit Rochester. I was able to reach out to him. He was able to put me in touch, and it's been a really good partnership. Obviously, from the education component and the science side of things, it's all that's their strong suit. But when Jody brought back from the Transportation Research Board following the 2017 eclipse, the transportation issues, we knew we had to get involved. And just one clarification to make you all panic a little bit more. The bridge that Hillary referenced that was backed up for over 24 hours, that was actually an interstate bridge from Kentucky into Ohio, that had an interstate bridge that was backed up for over 24 hours. So that tells you the kind of impact where there's bottlenecks and pinch points. Fortunately, we have a good infrastructure here, but it still is going to get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Thanks, Jim. And Jim knows more about that than I do, because that's not the research that I had been doing, but it is the research that Jim and Lori and the Transportation Council were doing, because that's the scary thing. We also don't have 4 directions to go in, right? So if you looked at some of those other places, people were heading northeast, south, and west, and we don't have north.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
So But I also don't think so many people will be heading west because Buffalo is in the center line as well. I think most people will be heading south and east, but you know more than that, more than I do on that.
No, you have a good observation here because you also, if you look even a little further west, you have Cleveland, you have Niagara Falls on the Canadian side. So I don't expect there might be some coming across the international border, but whether they come all the way to Rochester when they can get a pretty good view in Buffalo, I think you're spot on with south and east of us, the Mid-Atlantic region, New England region. We are a natural stopping point for folks heading west. So
yeah, and then it does go across sort of part of the Adirondacks. We're engaged with the Wild Center in Tupper Lake, working on that. There's not a whole lot of planetariums up in the Adirondacks, but then it goes through Quebec as well. So if you're Canadian, you don't have to cross the border to be able to see it.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Hillary. A great presentation and something definitely we as transportation officials, we need to be in tune with in the coming years and planning for that. Are there any questions of Hillary? She gave us some really good information here. If there's anyone has any extra thoughts or questions, let us know.
All right. My email address is holson@rmsc.org. holson@rmsc.org, and Jim and Lori have that if you need anything.
Okay.
I will talk to any group. Talking to individuals is fine, but talking to a group like this gets the word out a lot faster because then you all could be talking to people. So just let me know what you need and we will show up.
Great.
Good morning, Hillary. This is Todd. Just curious. So you're the Rochester Eclipse website. Are there have you connected with other
100.
cities Eclipse websites? Is this pretty regional, or is this? I seeing your map, I know it goes all the way across the United States on that path.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's other initiatives like this across the country.
Yeah, there's a few. There's a Great American Eclipse website that is really talking about national. There's a North American Eclipse websites. There are several. We were the first sort of smaller regional group to get something this big together. This website has been up for a year and a half. Just most of that time has been COVID, so we haven't gotten the word out as much as we wanted to. But there are there are probably 400 different groups that are working on this across the country through Mexico and Canada. And we are participating in the Astronomical Society. There's actually an eclipse conference this weekend, tomorrow and Saturday. We're working with the Buffalo group. We're working with the Cleveland group. We're working with the Dallas group. So making sure that we have all of those groups sort of represented and nobody's reinventing the wheel. So I am trying to do that. I'm trying to do that from a science center perspective, but also from a regional perspective. Right now, our focus has been on this, but yes, there's a lot of resources out there.
And just to refresh everybody, I think it was 2 years ago, tomorrow maybe, that we did a forum at the Museum and Science Center where we brought together for an all-day event different subject areas. So we had in the morning, GTC sponsored the session for public transportation officials and public safety folks. There was a session on tourism. There was a session on educators. I'm trying to remember some of the others that Hillary can write. I think it was 5 or 6 different groups. So one of the things that Hillary and her team are doing is coordinating a bunch of different subject areas, people that don't typically interact a lot, to take advantage of this common opportunity.
Yep. Yeah. And we had law enforcement, education, food and beverage, because that'll be huge for them. Thank you, Jim, for doing that, because that really allowed us to get out early and make sure that people were aware. But, COVID did sort of slow things down. So we're back.
Yeah. Good. All right. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you very much, Hillary. This is exciting. I, for one, am very looking forward to this eclipse. I was very interested in the last one and disappointed that we couldn't travel somewhere to get to it, but this one will be worth it for all of us, I think. So
Yep.
good heads up,
Thank
and
you.
I hope
Thank
we
you
will
so
be.
much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, Scott. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Hillary.
All right.